The inhumane forced relocation of Native American tribes is a dark chapter in American history that is often overlooked. For centuries, Native American tribes lived on their ancestral lands, living off the earth and following their traditional ways of life. However, the arrival of Europeans in the 15th century marked the beginning of a long and devastating period of displacement and forced relocation for Native American tribes. By the 19th century, the United States government had implemented a policy of forcing Native American tribes to move from their ancestral homelands to designated reservations. This policy was rooted in the belief that Native Americans were uncivilized and needed to be assimilated into American culture. The government believed that by removing Native Americans from their traditional lands, they could be controlled and civilized. In 1830, President Andrew Jackson signed the Indian Removal Act, which authorized the government to forcibly remove Native American tribes from their lands east of the Mississippi River and move them to Indian Territory, located in present-day Oklahoma. This act led to the infamous Trail of Tears, during which thousands of Cherokee people were forced to leave their homelands and walk over 1,200 miles to Indian Territory. During the journey, thousands died from disease, starvation, and exposure to the elements. The Trail of Tears was just one of many forced removals that Native American tribes experienced. Over the next few decades, the government forced many other tribes to leave their homelands and move to reservations. This included the Navajo, Apache, Comanche, and many others. The government used a variety of tactics to force Native American tribes to leave their homelands. In some cases, they used military force. In others, they used economic pressure, such as withholding food and supplies until tribes agreed to move. The forced relocation of Native American tribes had devastating consequences for their traditional way of life. Many tribes relied on hunting and gathering for their livelihoods, but the reservations often lacked the resources to support these activities. The government also forced Native American children to attend boarding schools where they were punished for speaking their native languages and were taught to abandon their traditional ways of life. These schools were designed to assimilate Native American children into American culture, but they often had traumatic effects on the children. The forced relocation of Native American tribes also had devastating consequences for their health. Many tribes were forcibly removed to areas where they had no immunity to the diseases of the settlers. Diseases such as smallpox, measles, and influenza spread rapidly among these populations, causing countless deaths. Even today, Native American communities continue to experience the effects of forced relocation. Many still live on reservations, which are often located in remote, poverty-stricken areas. Access to healthcare and education is limited, and many struggle with poverty and unemployment. The forced relocation of Native American tribes continues to have a ripple effect on their communities long after the initial displacement. The forced relocation of Native American tribes was a gross violation of their human rights. It was based on the racist belief that indigenous people were inferior and needed to be civilized by white Americans. The displacement of Native American tribes from their ancestral homelands was a traumatic event that had a lasting impact on their communities. It is important to acknowledge this dark chapter in American history and to work towards rectifying the injustices that were committed. One way to rectify these injustices is through reparations for Native American communities. Reparations can take many forms, including financial compensation and the return of land taken by the government. The U.S. government has taken some steps towards reparations, such as the establishment of the Indian Claims Commission in 1946, which allowed Native American tribes to file claims for compensation for lands taken by the government. However, many argue that these efforts have been inadequate and that more needs to be done to rectify the damage caused by forced relocation. Another way to rectify the injustices of forced relocation is to work towards greater understanding and respect for Native American culture and traditions. This means acknowledging the contributions of Native American communities to American culture and history and valuing their traditional ways of life. It also means working towards greater representation and political power for Native Americans in the U.S. government. The forced relocation of Native American tribes was a dark chapter in American history that should never be forgotten. It was a gross violation of human rights rooted in racism and a desire for control. The effects of forced relocation continue to be felt today, as Native American communities struggle to overcome the trauma and injustices of the past. It is important to acknowledge this history and work towards rectifying the injustices of forced relocation through reparations and greater understanding and respect for Native American culture and traditions. Only then can we move towards a more just and equitable society that honors the rights and dignity of all people.